Well, that's our friend Brent Durner from My Wicked Twin. That is the latest installment off an album, his sixth studio album, and it is entitled Nobody Approved. And I'm just removing a couple of sources here. That is I'd Hide a Body for You. And we'll have to have Brent on the show sometime to talk about the lyrics behind that song. But really cool video that's coming out with it. Brent is working with some cutting edge AI software. It's actually Cloudware. And he's producing AI videos to go with his songs. He's looking for a different audience that's into looking at AI art in front of them. And he's created these really great videos. Anyway, without further ado, my co-host with the most from the East Coast, Sean McKenna from the podcast Barstools and Band Talk. Rim Shots with Sean. Here he is. And here he is.
Hi.
Buddy.
How's she going?
I'm telling you, it's cold here tonight.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A little cold out this way, too.
In Michael's language, it's 0 degrees here tonight. And for those of you that are Canadian, that's around minus 18 Celsius. It's cold, and that wind chill just goes right through you.
Minus 18. Whew, that is very cold.
Yeah, and that's unusual for southwestern Ontario because we're considered to be in the tropical zone of Ontario, Canada.
I don't know. When I lived in Toronto, I never felt cold like that before in my life, and I've lived there for 7 years.
Well, it's weird. We live in the land of extremes here because it can get up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit here in the summer, sometimes 110 with the humidity. Because we live so close in proximity to the Great Lakes, and we get that lake effect in the summertime, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, another guy that lives by water, he lives down in San Francisco, I believe. His name's Mike Brandvold. He's a digital marketing specialist. We call him the Grand Poobah of marketing here because he's done. He's done. Do you remember the Grand Poobah from the Flintstones?
Yep.
You're the Grand Poobah, buddy.
And a new camera angle too, showing off all the hardware in the back.
Yeah, I don't know what changed. I don't know if StreamYard changed something or what here, but yeah, it's like wide angle instead.
I
tried something different tonight. So you're talking to two talking heads. Did you notice the difference in our shots here?
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting back and I'm relaxed. I could be
there. Now you're a talking head, buddy.
Yeah.
So Michael's talking to the talking heads tonight, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things in music. We've got the wind down of a legacy and a start of a new one for a band called Kiss.
They aren't going anywhere.
No. What came out today?
What you bought all that hype that it's over?
Right. Come on. What did Gene had an announcement? Was it today that he's playing in Brazil or something at some big festival?
He's going to Summer Breeze open air in Brazil this summer. Actually, not summer. I think it's April.
Right.
With his solo band.
I have a theory. The one thing that I noticed towards the end of the tour, Paul was really struggling. I mean, he got really sick around the Toronto leg of the tour. He picked up a really bad flu bug, got dehydrated. I mean, he got really sick. He was
they had to cancel 2 shows.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it upset a lot of Canadian fans, but I don't think people realize how sick the man was.
Oh yeah, I mean he had IVs to give him fluid. It's funny. Well, I shouldn't say funny. Fans don't understand that no musician wants to cancel a show. They don't. That's the absolute last thing a musician wants to do. They will do everything possible to get on stage and still play live. So for a show to get canceled, it's not something to take lightly. I mean, it is the absolute last resort. Many bands will go on stage with bad colds and mild flus and you know food poisoning, you name it. They don't want to cancel. And it, yes, there's financial considerations to canceling shows, but they're musicians. They love the stage. That's where they're happy. That's
That's what
where they are at home. They want to be there.
I have a theory though. I feel like everybody's going to go out and do solo stuff over the next little while, while Paul rests up his voice and gets his pipes back, and they're going to do something.
Well, I mean, first of all, I have never believed these were the last shows ever by Kiss.
Right.
I believe, and this is what they said. If anybody goes back to 2019 and starts listening to interviews and stuff they've given, the End of the Road tour is the last tour ever. They are never going to mount a tour of this scale. They're not going to tour the US. They're not going to tour Europe. There's not going to be a world tour. They've had it with that. That's exhausting. That's, they've got families. That sort of stuff is done, will never happen again. Could there be one-off shows? Could there be a residency in Vegas? Of course. They've even said so.
If I was Gene Simmons, I'd be planning a show in Toronto.
Gene will play a show anywhere.
Oh yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, plan for some of the cities that you had to cancel when you guys had illness, and go back there, because those fans would love you to come back there.
But I mean, that leads into something else that I get all the time when I'm working with bands who announce tours. No band deliberately wants to not play a city.
Mm-hmm.
Every single band on this planet will play anywhere they can play, as long as a promoter comes in with an offer to play.
Mm-hmm.
So, if the fans in Toronto want Gene to come back, they need to call the promoters, whoever they know, whether it's a venue, a big time promoter, and let them know and say, I want him, I want him, I want him, I want him. The only reason a band will not play a city is because some promoter didn't offer them money to come play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the simple truth. I've talked to so many bands and they just laugh. They're like, do fans really think that we as bands like sit around a kitchen table going, okay, these are the 12 cities I refuse to play. Yeah. I will not play. I hate these cities. I hate these fans. I will not play there. No. Now, the only way a band doesn't go to a city is if they've been banned. If that city or a venue has banned them from ever coming back, or a promoter just doesn't want to book them. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Well, the promoter actually ends up setting the venues, right? The promoter decides where they're gonna put those.
Yep.
Choose those.
The
venues.
The promoter puts the whole thing together. The promoter finds the venue, does the marketing, makes the offer. The offer is presented to the band. Now the band might get 2 or 3 offers for the same date. And now the band has to look at, well, what's the routing look like? Is it easier for us to go from city A to B? Or is it easier to go from A to C? And can we get B later in the tour? There's a lot that goes into it, but every band will play every city as long as it's a legitimate, real offer to play there.
And there's a lot of work on the promoter's side of this too, to get the show together, because they have to have a plan to come to the bands with, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, they have to deal with what's the routing, and then what's the plan? Well, here's how much we're going to offer you, and here's the venue, and there's a lot of logistics and
And
finances that are involved in this.
I was just going to say, I used to be in the shipping business years ago, and everything was about logistics.
Yeah, it's like, how quickly can you get from point A to point B? And sometimes you can't get there overnight. It's just not feasible. Well, what time of the year is it? Is it the dead of winter when there's the threat of blizzards and snowstorms? Or is it the middle of summer where it's pretty much going to be clear driving and not an issue? Um, there's a lot that goes into it. But again, to think, and I see this every single time any band announces a tour, some fans are like, well, you just hate my city. You've never played here. Well, that's not the band's fault. It is not.
Michael, I would love to work with you to help you write a book about your life. You've led a very interesting life, and I want to reintroduce you to everybody that's watching us tonight, because we really appreciate having someone of your caliber on the show. I mean, you are the consummate Kiss fan. You started up what led to Kiss Online. You ended up being selected as a super follower of the band Kiss to become one of their first big employees.
Yeah. I became a professional fan, basically.
Yeah.
I got paid to be a fan of the band I love.
How hard is that?
It's not hard, but it is also not challenging, but it's a different frame of mind. I can't be that crazy Uber fan when I'm working. I got hired to do a job. And the example I give is when I was around Kiss, whether it was backstage or side stage or at their homes or whatever, I wasn't the fan that was sitting there going, all right, I got to ask you this question and tell me about this. And here, I've got 50 things I brought with me. Can you autograph all of these? I never, ever once did that because I got hired to do a job. And that job, for me, came first. I treated that with respect. Now, if we got, casual moments where we were just sitting around, I might have casual conversations, but I never went uber crazy fanboy on any of the artists I've worked with. And that, and as a diehard fan of some of these bands, that does take restraint to sit here and go, bite your tongue, don't ask that question, don't ask for this, don't ask, be grateful for what you are doing and what you're able to experience.
I think one of the cool things about what you've done in your career, and I want to talk about it just for a second, because it really strikes me when you have the ear of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, and that's rare because musicians typically have a hard time, especially professional musicians, have a hard time letting people into that space.
Oh, it is. I mean, every artist is very careful about letting fans into that inner circle. Because that fan could be crazy. I mean, let's just be simple. That could be a crazy psycho fan, and you got to be very careful about that.
The thing I think what attracted Gene and Paul to you in terms of your marketing skills was also the fact that you're a genuine fan. And I don't mean fan. Usually when we use the word fan, we say fanatic. You're not that guy. You are one person that loves the band. You love what they do. And, you as someone who followed them, supported them, you wanted to come up with some way to help them. You started that fan website.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been a fan that I felt like I could recognize the lines not to cross.
Right.
To be professional, to be respectful, to to not. I mean, we've all seen that fan who walks up to an artist and, like I said, pulls out 50 things and demands autographs and says, "I deserve this. I'm owed this." And I can't cross that line. That's not who I am. And
That happens to Sean all the time.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I mean, so I became friends with a gentleman by the name of Pete Evick. So Pete Evick is a musical director for Bret Michaels' band, and Pete is a really, really super nice guy. And him and a couple of buddies were doing a show on Saturday, and he had the funniest line. He says, "Oh, by the way, if you're sending me a message saying you can't make it to my show, I can also see when you post yourself on other people's shows on social media." And his point was, it's like, don't send me you can't make it, and then look for free tickets for the next one. That type of thing I think is just an eye roller for a lot of these guys, right? But it's I get what Michael's saying, because I when I started interviewing people, I always joked around that I didn't ever want to be Chris Farley in the
yep,
Paul
when he's
McCartney
interviewing
skit.
Paul McCartney skit. Yep.
Absolutely
Yeah.
embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean that's fanboy, and that can be fine one time when it's in a situation where everybody's laughing. But again, I've seen fans who that is how that fan acts all the time around everybody. And artists don't want that around them in their inner circle.
No.
I think the cool thing about you is that people feel safe enough to let you in there because they know that you're dedicated to what you're doing. I mean, I see that just in the way you talk and the way that you relate to people, that you'd be one of these guys that could build trust in your clients to the point where, hey, I'm just here to help you. That's all I want to do is help you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, and anybody who works with an artist, that's what your primary reason should be. I mean, it should be because you want to help the artist. If you can get something out of it and move your career along, great. But you are here to help and work for an artist. And I've always felt that there's a saying that, once a band manager thinks they're bigger than the artist, it's time to get a different manager. Meaning, your job is to be behind the scenes. Your job is to put the artist out front in the spotlight, make them succeed. And when it gets to the point where you're like, "Oh no, I'm bigger than the artist," it's like, no, your job is supporting artists. Your job is not to be the celebrity.
Was it, Mike? Was it ever a challenge? And I say this not to, I guess, be catty or whatever, but I've seen some interviews with Paul Stanley where they're doing an interview and then they ask him something that's a piece of feedback that he doesn't like, and he immediately goes to kind of a pouty, "I'm going to take this person on and pound them into the ground for the remainder of the interview." Did you ever have any moments like that where you're trying to get him to kind of come over to your way of thinking, and there was that type of feedback, or was that just something that he does when he vamps for the camera?
No, I've never had that. But again, I don't think I would ever ask that sort of a question that would cause that situation to be created. You as somebody who interviews artists, you've got to and I've never had an artist say these topics are off limits or
Right.
show me the questions beforehand. That's never happened. And I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the smallest to the biggest artists. They never ask that.
I think the one difference I've always noticed between Gene and Paul is the way they come at things quite differently. I mean, I really think that Paul sees himself as more of an intellectual. Gene sees himself more as, I'm the business guy. I get her done. I like to close deals. I like to negotiate with people. And to me, that's what drives those guys, the way they both think, and then how uncanny they think together. I mean, here's two guys that have kept that business together as a massive conglomerate.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both different personalities, but everybody in any band is going to have different personalities through the band. And I think as somebody who is in a position to interview a celebrity, you need to understand those personalities. You got to understand the person. You got to, Gene is the type of person who likes to say things for effect. He wants to get a reaction.
Right.
Paul is very well spoken and thinks out what he's going to say. But at the same time, you've also got to go, well, is it appropriate to ask a gotcha question? What's going to happen if I ask that gotcha question?
Well,
one of two things is going to happen, depending on who the artist is. And if it's an artist that's been around for 40 years, they know how to deal with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They can walk right around it and change the subject and end the interview with complete control and elegance. Some artists will just snap at you and it'll turn nasty. But either way, that'll probably be the last time you'll ever be approved to do an interview.
I kind of, over time, I've come to appreciate all the guys and all the lineups in that particular band. And but Gene and Paul have always stood out to me simply because of their commitment to the brand. And they were often like mom and dad to the other two. To the other two.
I mean,
who was having more fun?
Well, and this is the case with every band as well. The longer a band is together, the more the band is going to understand who's the best to do the interviews, who is the best to speak on our behalf, who is going to get the message across, and who is going to open up a can of worms if we let them speak. Every band has that one person in that band where you're like, don't let Joe do the interview. Don't let him do it, because he's going to say something that we don't want him to say.
I got a question for you, and I want to know. I need two answers to this one, and I'm sure you know the story. Who came up with the idea for the Kiss coffin?
I'm guessing Gene. Or the coffin company presented the idea and said, "Hey, we want to do this. Can we get the rights to do a Kiss coffin?"
I heard that there were vendors lined up to meet with Gene to pitch him ideas about merch that they could sell.
Well, not necessarily with Gene. I mean, again, most of the artists of Kiss's caliber have a merchandising company that represents them. When I was working with them, the company was Sony Signatures, and they became Signatures Network. But this company had like 150 artists: Kiss, Ozzy, Madonna, U2, Motley Crue, Fleetwood Mac, Meatloaf. I mean, the company would go out and acquire the rights to these artists to represent them. And then their job as a company is to get these business offers to come in. And
merch companies are doing really well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all branding, it's licensing, it's lifestyle, it's much more than just concert T-shirts and a ball cap and a tour book, which is what it used to be when that whole business first started. Now it's, so much, everything that name is on. But yeah, companies will constantly be calling and going, I'd like to present an idea. Can we get the license to Ozzy to make this product? and you've got to jump through hoops, and then it's got to be reviewed by the merchandise company, and then the merch company likes it, they present it to the artist and their management, and they review it, and it can take a while, but that's how all that sort of stuff happens.
And those merch companies, much like the promoters we were talking about in terms of planning and logistics, they have a ton of planning and logistics as well, because they take care of making sure the merch is at all the shows.
Well, yeah, I mean they do merchandising for tours, but then they do traditional retail. So you could walk into any store and find a shirt, even if a band isn't touring, right off the rack. You could walk into Target or Walmart, and all of those artist shirts you will find at Target or Walmart are licensed. They come through a merchandising company who cuts a deal with Walmart or Target and says, okay, we're going to supply you with Pink Floyd and Guns N' Roses and Kiss and AC/DC, and here's your wholesale cost for it. And but yes, they also have to be responsible for all the tour merchandising, making sure all that tour stuff gets out on the road.
I think at last count, I think I've got something like 100 band shirts.
Yeah, I mean that's a core business for bands.
I'm going to take all my old band shirts and I'm going to plaster them on my new studio.
That'll be exciting. Wow.
Because I collect band shirts almost every year. I think I've been collecting them for eons. My kids buy them for me every birthday.
At the 25-minute and 30-second mark, when Michael was talking about fanboy, thank you for giving us a great example of fanboy, Ken. There it is, right there.
Fanboy. I love it. Brent says to say hi. That track we were listening to at the top of the show was off Brent's 6th studio album, and that is called "I'd Hide a Body for You." And we're gonna have to have him on the show to talk about that. Interesting track, interesting lyrics. The video that's going to come out to it is quite controversial. Because it's been produced all on AI. So that's a new area that Brent's involved in. He does. He owns Red D Film, and he's into all that stuff, and he loves pushing the artistic boundaries. So, speaking about promotion, and I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about we've been following this thing, and I've been involved in some of the conversations. So have you, Michael. So have you, Sean, about Spotify. There's been things posted, good, bad, mostly good, bad, and indifferent, but mostly bad and indifferent. And there's good in everything. You just have to look for it. But there is a latest scandal that is plaguing Spotify CEO Daniel Ek. Have you seen the latest on that?
No, what's the latest now?
So the latest is that he responded to an alleged scheme on the platform that could supposedly make artists more money. On Monday, September the 11th, Julian Klimoco, founder of CEO Accelerate, cited J.P. Morgan report that suggested artists could make up to $1,200 a month in royalties on Spotify if they uploaded a 30-second track and then programmed their phone to play it continuously. And Daniel Ek says, oh, no, that's not how the royalties work. That's not how we distribute royalties to our artists. And but they've never really publicly disclosed how they do that. There's a real lack of transparency there. That concerns me.
Well, first of all, any artist who thinks that's what they're going to do, they're not in this for a career. I mean, that artist is just trying to game the system and is not interested in a long-term career. And I wouldn't work with them. I mean, I wouldn't put any trust in any artist that's going to sit there and go, oh yeah, I'm going to upload a track and I'm going to program. What is that doing for you? what does that do at the end of the day? What are you gaining? Because eventually, yeah, you might get $1,200 in royalties until Spotify shuts it down and doesn't allow that to happen anymore. But you're not gaining fans. You're not doing anything for your career. You're not going to build your fan base. You're not going to have anything where when you release more music, you're going to have more people listen to it. You're not going to have people buying tickets. You're just looking for a quick shortcut. And that's not a career.
And
I mean
in
that will never, that's never going to succeed.
So here's the whole crux with this whole thing is that Spotify for the longest time was vulnerable to streaming bots.
Sure.
And it was common knowledge that record labels were using bot farms to stream their artist music to push it up through the algorithms.
Yep. It's a game of whack-a-mole. You know, somebody finds a thing they could exploit, great. And then Spotify shuts it down, and then they look for the next hole to exploit. Again, whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole, whack-a-mole. I sit there and look at that and go, okay, great, but that does absolutely nothing for you as a band. What's the point of having 1 million bots listen to your music? It's not 1 million people. It's literally no person.
Mhm.
It is not one fan.
Until it pushes it up in the algorithms, and then all of a sudden,
Never work that way. It will never work out that way.
What happens if the music ends up in an algorithmic playlist?
Spotify is, again, always the people looking for the magic bullet find that hole. Spotify shuts it down. They look for the next hole. And it's not just Spotify. This is everything on the internet. I mean, bots have been used for years and years and years to automate online polls and online voting and form submissions. And as soon as somebody figures out a bot's doing it, they shut the hole down. It gains you nothing because all you're going to be doing is wasting your time and money to figure out a shortcut that does nothing to further your career. It will never put butts in the seat when you tour. It will never sell a CD when you release product. It will never sell a t-shirt. Never. I mean, because those bots are nothing.
No, but I'm just saying it was common knowledge that they were being used to push music up through algorithms because that's how music rises to the top of suggested playlists.
And those algorithms can easily be changed by Spotify to accommodate and shut down stuff like that.
Yeah, they're constantly at work. They're constantly at work trying to eliminate any of that because they've been much more diligent. In fact, they announced, I think it was the end of last year, that they were going to crack down on artificial streams.
Yeah, as they should. They're always looking for how do they shut down the latest scams, the latest schemes that an artist is trying to do. That's artists who think all that matters in their career is a big number.
Well, I
want 1 million people liking my Facebook page. I'll go out and buy 1 million Facebook likes because they think that's going to move them up in the algorithms. No, it actually moves you down in the Facebook algorithm, but they don't know that. They just think that big number is going to have a record label come by and go, holy crap, this band's got 1 million Facebook fans. Let's give them a record deal. Sorry, but people in the business can spot the scams right away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but therein lies the problem that people buy into, right? You hear that, the singer from Journey getting picked up because they saw him playing at a wedding on a YouTube video, and these things that are, really 1 in a million, but they're portrayed as, oh, you do it and you'll get there, and I get something the other day. It was an artist. I don't even know what the heck she does, but she's got 4 million followers, and basically, if I want to pay $1,000, I'll be able to get all kinds of different things for $1,000 a month. But what I'm doing has nothing to do with what her audience does. So why would I want to do that? It doesn't.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the whole other thing where people think they'll become an influencer because they've got millions of people who follow them, so I can sell access to my followers to somebody. Okay, great. Are those real followers? Because I know, again, I could, as we're talking right now, go find a page, jump on this page, buy 1 million Instagram followers.
Yep.
PayPal them probably a couple $1,000, and by tomorrow morning, my Instagram is going to look impressive as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So and then do I turn around and try and sell that reach to somebody like you and go, hey, pay me $5,000 and I'll send your message out to my followers? How do you know my followers are real? Because the odds are they're not. Anybody can do this. And more importantly, if those are even real followers, are they followers that give a crap about what I'm doing?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the thing is that the reality is that even on Facebook and on other social media services, they chop the algorithms down so that you're basically, unless you're paying sponsored ads, you're not going to get out to more than 25 people at a go.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. Too many people are only focused on gaming the algorithms and growing their numbers. That's it. And you know what? That's never going to work in the long run, because at the end of the day, I'd rather have 1,000 real engaged fans than 100,000 fake fans.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing with the record label, because it's going to become more than a record label. It's going to be more like a download and streaming service for independent music, because we want to offer an alternative where independent artist music doesn't get buried in the minutia. I mean, there's like 60,000 tracks a day or better being published at Spotify alone. Think of how quickly your music gets buried.
Yeah. There's no, before the internet, there was no easy way to succeed in the music business. After the internet, there is no easy way. It's still work. It's hard work, day after day, year after year. You don't rocket to stardom in 3 months. It doesn't happen.
So to that thing about that 30-second clip and putting it on repeat, further to that whole business, Spotify is making some changes. Not only do you have to have a minimum of 1,000 streams to start earning income on your music, but you must also you must also abide by other certain rules that Spotify is going to be dictating over the next little while if you want to be on the platform.
And great. I'm all for that. I mean, if it helps shut down the people who are trying to abuse the system, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, the like I said, the downside of that is that music gets buried really quickly. For independent artists, they want to stand beside other comparative artists, not be buried underneath them where people can't find them. So the cool thing I like about what we're doing is we're putting artists on the label. It's quickly, like I said, it's quickly becoming, because we're at the end of this month, we'll be 40 artists on the label. And by the end of the year, if Sean keeps sending me people, we're going to be we'll have probably 100 people on our platform by the end of the year. We'll reach our first 100 artists, and that's big because that's all organic growth. And we're talking thousands of titles of music. Some of this going, for some artists going 6 albums deep.
Well, I think that when you, I hate to say it's not throwing muck at the wall. I think what it is you're anybody that I've been, I guess, coming across has been very serious about wanting their music heard. They're frustrated with, you know, current methods that they're using. I guess the one thing for me that I would say is that, you know, if you're not doing anything any differently than anybody else, why do you expect different results? And I think that that's kind of, you know, what we're shooting for. And we'll see where it goes. But I mean, you know, everybody, find it on all the streaming places. Well, great. What does that mean? I mean, somebody sent me something the other day. I couldn't find it on Spotify. I couldn't find it at Apple. I had to ask them 3 times what I was looking for. So you don't know, man. Like, people just don't know. They think they do, but they don't.
Well, you and I've talked about that. We've talked about, you know, how we can do that. The show is dedicated to doing that, giving people some inside knowledge about things by having great people like Michael on the show who, from a professional perspective, because you and I haven't always had that lived experience, but we can certainly, you know, push and prod Michael to spill out some of that genius of his to our audience. And you know, often I know when people watch the shows with Michael, they find it really helpful. I've gotten some feedback to the same. You know, I think the thing is at the end of the day is that, you know, like what Michael said, you got to love what you do.
Well, you got to understand. You've got to understand the business. You know, streaming is not going to make you money. It's not. Stop crying that you're not making money off of it. I mean, you know, people are like, "Oh my God, I got to have 1,000 streams before I get paid." Dude, listen, if you can't get 1,000 streams, you don't deserve to get paid. That's the reality. Bust your ass to get fans and get them to go stream your music. If you got 1,000 real fans, then you can get that number. But even still, 1,000 people streaming is not the equivalent of 1,000 people buying a CD. It's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to stop thinking that, you know, it's like spending $10. Nobody spends $10 for CDs anymore. I'm sorry. But year after year after year, physical sales are going to become less and less a form of consumption. They're going to be a collectible. I mean, Sean, I think you and I talked about it last week on my podcast. Vinyl is, yeah, everybody's like, oh, vinyl's exploding, huge numbers. Yeah. Tell me when it's back to the numbers it was in like 1985. Then I'll be serious about vinyl is back as a primary form of media consumption. But it's not. It's not. Vinyl is more than it was the year before and the year prior to that, but it's still a fraction of what it was when vinyl was the format of choice. Vinyl is a collectible, and CDs are going down year after year. All you got to do is look. Best Buy has completely removed physical media from all of their stores.
Right.
Gone. You can hate it. It can suck. But you know what? There's nothing you can do about it. Physical media is becoming less and less important, not just in music, but in DVDs, in books, in everything. Nobody wants clutter. Nobody needs physical anymore when you can get everything convenient, fast, and immediately via digital. You have to learn how to live in that world. If you can't, you are going to be, and I think this is what I had said when we talked, you're just going to end up being grandpa sitting on the front porch yelling at the kids to get off the goddamn lawn.
Pretty much.
Great. Go do that. You're not going to make any change in the world because guess what? The world is leaving you behind.
Yeah.
Nobody reads newspapers anymore. Nobody reads magazines anymore. That information is still there, but it's digital. You got to learn to work in that world.
I think there's going to be a market for vinyl. I don't think it's going to be what it used to be, but $2 billion expected this year.
There's always going to be a market, but again, the market is collectible.
Right.
It's a collectible market. I have got here. Let me see if I can.
Oh, look at that.
There's a rack of vinyl records over there, and I got a new vinyl album. Here, let me grab it. I got a new vinyl album last week. Dan Reed Network.
Oh,
now,
yes.
I took the shrink wrap off because I wanted to look at the color vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to ever drop a needle on this.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's the exact same album I can listen to on Spotify. Right now on any device wherever I am. But I bought this because I wanted to support the band. I wanted to give the band some more money to say thank you. I like vinyl, but I don't listen to vinyl. It's not going to get played. And the vast majority of vinyl consumers are going to be the same way. How many people have turntables? How many people have turntables set up that you can go listen to music in more than one room? I'm sorry, but a turntable is a fixture in one location. You've got to be there to listen. How are you going to listen to that vinyl album in the car?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to listen to that vinyl album when you're exercising, when you're riding the bike? How are you going to listen to that vinyl album if you're in a different room in your house? It's not the convenient method of listening.
It's not convenient, but some people still really enjoy it. I love sitting down to vinyl. I've got a beautiful vintage stereo system here. It's a Yamaha natural sound system here in the studio. And a buddy of mine redid the original Yamaha speakers for me. And it just sounds so different than digital.
There's no debating that. But you aren't the majority of the music population consumers out there. My 10-year-old daughter, guess where she gets all of her music and listens to all of her music?
Spotify.
YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube. Not even Spotify. YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is the number one place to consume and discover music on the internet. And people don't even necessarily watch the videos. They just start the music and they go off and do something else and let YouTube play that video. Mm-hmm. That's how it is consumed today. Yes, there's always going to be audiophiles who love the experience of vinyl and that process. That market is this.
Oh yeah, it's a small market. No doubt.
The music market is this. Now, if you're in this for a career, do you want to focus on this? Or do you want to try and connect with as much of this as possible? Right. Sell vinyl for what it is primarily done for now. Collecting. It's a collectible. It's a great margin. It's got great markups in it. People love it. It's a cool thing. It's cool to be seen as somebody who collects vinyl. But you don't listen to vinyl anymore. I mean, even when I was listening to all of my vinyl back in the 80s, you know what I would do? I'd walk into Musicland. I'd buy the new album, and at the same time, I'd buy a blank cassette tape. And I'd play that vinyl album one time. I'd immediately record it to my cassette tape, put the vinyl in my shelf, and now the cassette tape is in my car, it's in my Walkman, is in my boombox. It became much more convenient to play music that way. We've just gone all the way to the ultimate convenience now.
You're smart, because I was the guy that I would play the vinyl in my mother's basement, and I wouldn't even put it back in, and I'd leave it. It would get burnt on like the radiator and stuff, because I was just figuring songs out left, right, the thousands of dollars that I lost. And to your point, just over my shoulder here, I've got Creatures of the Night box set and Music from the Elder, and it hasn't even Nothing's come off them, Michael. I haven't even listened to them. They're just sitting there.
Yeah, I've got the Creatures of the Night box set here. I got the brand new Kiss Lick It Up picture disc offering that they just released. Why did I get it? Not to listen to it.
Right.
I got it because it looks beautiful. It looks great. I love that. The Creatures of the Night box set. I got it for all the other content except for the music because the music's on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to frickin' sit. You know, I'm sorry, as much as I love vinyl, but it's just like it takes work to listen to vinyl.
It does indeed.
It's a job to listen to vinyl, and if you're only listening to the vinyl, that might be fine. But when you're working and listening to vinyl, oh crap, hold on, I got to stop and flip the album over so I can listen to the other side. Now, I'm sorry, when I'm working, hit that Spotify play button and just let it keep going and going and going. And again, I will say this from the bottom of my heart, that's also how I discover new bands.
Mm-hmm.
I have discovered more bands that I've never heard of, music I've never heard of, new and old, because of Spotify. More than I've ever discovered walking into Tower Records every Tuesday on new release day and browsing the aisles to see what was on the shelf. Because again, even a huge Tower Records only has a fraction of the music that's been released and even a fraction of the new releases. Because why? Because there's a bunch of curators between me and that record label deciding what am I going to be able to access at Tower Records. There's no curation on Spotify. The entire recorded music of the world is available there.
Mm.
And it can be presented to me. So I want, as a music fan, I want that every single day because I know I'm going to find new music I've never heard of before. And if I really fall in love with it, then I go spend some money on the band. I'll buy the t-shirt. I'll buy the vinyl. I'll do,
Right.
you know, if they're coming to town and I can make it happen, I'll go to the show. That's how I will, that's how music fans should support their artists. Spotify is a marketing tool. Streaming is a marketing tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marketing tool to make money selling something else to that fan.
Here's an interesting thing too, because you can also use that information coming off those services to help direct traffic to your artist music on your website too.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, listen, you can get detailed information about your fan base from these streaming services to tell you where are these people listening.
That's right.
Boy, look at this. I've got 5,000 people listening in Toronto. Boy, maybe I should go play a show in Toronto. How would you know that if it wasn't because of the streaming services? Tower Records would never tell you that information. Retail will never share customer data back to the artist. As an artist today, you've got so much data about who your fans are, where they live, how old are they, what languages do they speak. It's incredible.
Well, what's really growing as well, Michael, is that there are a lot of internet radio stations now that are applying to licensing companies to be able to play music of artists that are out there, and so that those artists actually get paid royalties from that airplay. So there's a lot of them podcasts included. We have a podcast that plays one of our artist music, and he went out and licensed our artist music through Connect Music Licensing, so that every time they play it on their podcast, our artist gets paid.
And that's great. I mean, here let's just throw this little slap of reality out there. Everybody's complaining about how little streaming services pay the artists when their music is played. How much money do you think an artist gets paid when a radio station, a terrestrial real radio station in the US plays an artist?
It's pennies on the dollar.
Zero. It's not pennies. Zero.
Oh.
Radio in the United States doesn't pay the artist. It pays the songwriters. It doesn't pay the US is like one of 2 or 3 countries in the entire world that is still that way, that the artist does not get paid anything if you're played on radio in the United States. And yet, one of the number one things any client I work with is like, how do I get on radio in the US? You're not going to make money off of it. You're not making money. You know, it might look good for you to, or it might feel good to hear yourself on that radio station, but Spotify's paying you more than your local radio station will ever pay you. Play your music.
By and large, I'm seeing numbers of internet radio stations who are actually going to ASCAP, BMI, whoever is managing the rights for the music, and they're paying for a licensing.
They legally have to. They legally have to. Streaming radio has to pay.
And they
broadcast radio doesn't.
A lot of them do it on the cool thing about streaming radio is that if you support streaming radio, every time they play your artist music, they're getting paid.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're an artist and you want to really complain about something, how about making US radio stations finally start paying the artists? Basically they get all of this music for free. They play it, and then they don't pay. And they sell advertising around it, and they don't have to pay. They don't have to pay the artist.
Wow.
Everybody else has to pay the artist, even fractions of a penny, but radio doesn't.
It's a real messed up system.
It's completely messed up. It's old. It's antiquated. And of course, radio stations don't want to change.
Well,
why would they want to change? Because all of a sudden it's going to become a huge hit to their bottom line if they've got to start paying like everybody else has to.
So we're coming up on the top of the hour, but I just want to open up the subject. We'll carry it on probably on a future show. You know, when you think about the whole streaming thing, going forward, like where do you see it all going?
If I had that crystal ball, I'd be charging people millions of dollars to consult. Streaming's here to stay. That's for sure. It's not going to go away. You either get your act together, understand it, adapt to it, and learn how to use it, or you're going to be left behind. Everything is going to streaming, not just music. Everything is it's a streaming world we live in. Will the revenue models and the finances behind it change and evolve? Oh yeah, of course. They've been doing that from day one. You know, there's all kinds of ideas out there. What will happen? Hard to say. I mean, keep in mind that the record labels love the streaming business as it is right now, because the record labels are collecting millions of dollars a day. There's profits being made.
Passive income.
The record labels are collecting all of that revenue. They love it. The record labels were the ones who initially negotiated with the streaming services what the payout was going to be. The record labels initially owned percentages of these streaming companies. Anybody starting to get a picture here of what you're dealing with?
Mm-hmm.
The artist is left out in center field and has no say in this, but their record label cut the deals. The record label's collecting the money. The record label is responsible for paying the artist. I mean, it's the way the music business has always been from day one. It's just changed from royalties of selling a CD to royalties of streaming. But guess what? You're still trying to get that money out of a record label.
Right. What do you think about a record label that puts all those rights in the hands of the artist?
That's great.
That's exactly what we do.
But again, at the end of the day, somebody's got to be making money. Meaning that label still has to have something that generates revenue for the label, or the label just can't exist.
Right.
You can't. Everybody's like, well, you could do it because it's the right thing to do. Well, you know what? The right thing to do doesn't put food on the table. You've got to make money, whether you're a record label, whether you're a venue, whether you're a band, whether you're a streaming service. You still got to make money, or you're just going to be gone. You're going to be out of business, and then all of those great virtues that you have mean nothing. So it's a balance. It's definitely got to be a balance of like, how does that label make money, yet how do they fairly pay the artists at the same time? And it's fully fair to expect a record label should be making money somehow. They have to. They just have to. As a record label, you're investing in an artist. Unless you're independently wealthy, which most of us aren't.
I'm not independently wealthy, but I'm very frugal.
You've got to generate revenue so you can put that revenue back into what you're doing so you can keep growing it. Can you do that if you pass everything along to the artist? That won't last long. You can give better royalties, better payments, better transparency, but still at the end of the day, that artist has to bust their butt to get people to buy music and stream music. If they aren't going to do that, it doesn't matter how nice you are as a label.
Right.
Giving them 100% of nothing, still nothing.
Yeah, I'm not talking about 100% of nothing. I'm talking about a fair and even split where the artist actually comes out ahead. Because as you've pointed out earlier on, the artist doesn't always get a fair shake.
No. But this is what Sean and I talked about last week, is like, the artist needs to know what their contracts are. They need to understand the business. They need to understand the terms. They need to understand how money flows from a streaming service to them, from a retail store to them, from a venue to them. How does that money make its way down? How does that money trickle down to the artist? And who are all of the people between the artist and the sale that are taking a penny, a penny, a penny, a penny, a penny, a penny, to, at the end, the artist is going, how come I only got 1 penny? Well, that's because there were 99 other people taking pennies out of it ahead of you. Did you not know that?
Yeah. Yeah. We're looking to change that. I think that we can make some positive changes in that direction. I think there's a better way for artists to get remunerated. That's why we exist as a record label. It's to find that way. We're still looking for that way of our artists being able to make their fair share. The problem is that the competition is not fair. If you're a major record label on a major streaming service, you're going to get a different tier of service than if you're a label nobody.
It's always been that way. Always been that way. Tower Records will treat Warner Brothers better than they'll treat the small indie label. Now, I can also understand why. Which one of those two businesses is making more money for the retailer?
Right.
Who's making me, Spotify is a retailer, just like Tower's a retailer. It's point of purchase. It's where you consume. Who is making more money for the business? A small label that releases 6 titles a year that sell a couple thousand units, or a major label that's releasing hundreds of products that's generating millions of dollars? It's a business we're in. It's a business.
Yeah, and I get the fact that it's all tiered. It's just that we're looking at trying to give our artists something a little bit different. Those people that would follow them, a little different experience in terms of finding their music, but finding other artists' music that are also independents that they might not otherwise find because their music may be so buried in the algorithms. And, Spotify is still trying to sort some of that out. I was talking about them eliminating the 30-second. I think they're putting a minimum of 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 2 minutes and 20 seconds on a track now before they consider it an actual track. They're looking at removing those, what is that sound sensory thing?
Oh, ASMRs?
Yeah, they're talking about either getting rid of them altogether or putting them in a category of their own. Because,
well, again, yes, they have to, because people figured out how to game the system the way it was originally built. When Spotify was built, a streaming service was built, the programmers probably were like, nobody ever thought, oh yeah, somebody's going to put up a 30-second white noise track and just have it on loop for over and over and over and collect money on it. Nobody thought somebody would do that. Well, somebody figured out you could, and they did. And all these streaming services need to shut down all of these loopholes that people discover and take advantage of. And again, I'll go back to where we started. If you are an artist and you're focusing all your attention on how to game the system, leave me alone. You're not in this for a career. You're not interested in being an artist. All you care about is figuring out how to game a system to make some money quickly before it's changed. And guess what? If it's not streaming music today, they'll figure out how to game the ebooks on Amazon Kindle. They'll figure out how to game streaming on Amazon Prime videos. They'll figure out how to game NFTs and make quick bucks off of NFTs.
There's a whole lot of stuff out there, man.
I mean, those people are just looking for the next opportunity to make a quick buck before the hole gets closed and I got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, we just opened up a huge can of worms. To be continued for sure, guys. We're at an hour 10, so we're going to wind things down here. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Michael, most of all, Michael Brandvold, a digital marketing specialist from Michael Brandvold. It's his company. And you guys are located in San Francisco, right?
Just north of San Francisco.
And you're a gun for hire.
Yeah, just head over to michaelbrandvold.com and you can contact me through there. You'll find links to all my social profiles, a contact form. Yeah.
Michael has helped out so many people in the music industry, and you got to come to him with a budget, and you might just get some of that genius working for you. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight, Sean, as always. Michael, remember, this is the Indie Show. I am Kenny, and you are not. And have a great week, everybody. We'll see you